Today, the US military conducted airstrikes on two sites in eastern Syria associated with Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps following attacks on US personnel in Syria and in neighbouring Iraq. Former Liberal Minister Zed Seselja joins me now. Zed, great to have you on. It sounds like a silly question. Is this a concerning escalation?
Well, Erin, I think I wouldn't describe it as an escalation as such, but how I would describe it is a very proportionate response by the US to a lot of provocation that has been coming, including the injury to their personnel from a number of attacks by militias and others backed by Iran. So the US, in conducting these airstrikes, I think is sending a very clear and important message that of deterrence, and that it, of course, won't allow those kind of attacks on its personnel to go ahead. I think what's also really important is that the US is strengthening its role in the region and its presence in the region. And obviously Iran and others will seek to escalate things, but that very presence will hopefully send a very strong message of deterrence to Iran and other actors who might want to see further turmoil and bloodshed in the region.
Speaking of the US, our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, is on the tail end of his trip to Washington, where President Biden publicly warned him against trusting China, essentially, and their intentions. What are your thoughts on the visit to see Xi Jinping in his homeland?
Well, look, obviously, I think the first thing we need to recognise is the fact that we have a very important trading relationship with China. It has been for many, many years and will continue to be a very important trading relationship, therefore important to both economies. But also, we are dealing with a nation that is an authoritarian dictatorship. It is a nation which has sought to bully many nations in our region. And so we need to be clear-eyed about those challenges. We need to stand up for our interests economically, but we should never do it at the expense of our values. You know, it was only a few years ago that the Chinese government had a list of demands, which of course our coalition government refused to comply with, and we saw some retaliation at that time. Now, the Labor Party at the time in opposition played a lot of political games from opposition without saying which of those 14 demands, of course, they would have bowed to. So we need to be clear-eyed, we need to be strong in standing up for our own interests, but of course, to the extent we can see some of these unfair bans on Australian products into China, well, I think that's a good thing. But we should also remember that when China puts trade bans on Australian products such as coal, it's often China that indeed suffers, and we have in the past been able to find a lot of alternate markets. So there's a relationship there. It's in both nations' interests, but we need to stand up for ours.
Absolutely. We also have to remember who started many of these problems, and then when they stop or they lift sanctions or they return some of our unlawfully held people, that we're grateful and we praise them, but they're the ones who did the wrong thing in the first place. We've got to keep that front of mind, I think, in this relationship. You've nominated Zed for Maurice Payne's Senate seat. Now, I know you can't talk specifically, but what do you still have to offer politics?
Well, yeah, thanks, Erin. I do need to be very careful. I can confirm that I have nominated. It's politics is a great public service ultimately, and I'll leave my pitch to the Liberal Party for members in private through proper processes. But what I would say, Erin, is that we have a great democratic Liberal Party, and I'm sure that the membership ultimately will make the right decision, whatever that decision is.
Well, I've known you for many years and you did a great job for Canberra, so best of luck to you, Zed. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Erin.